edition of the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. I'm a two-time Paralympian, online training and nutrition coach, and owner of James Robert Fitness. You can find more of my content by going to my website, fitamputee.co.uk. But before we get started with today's show, first off, let me take this opportunity to welcome back the regular listeners. And if this is your first time listening to the show, I hope you enjoy this episode and decide to subscribe to the show. And on today's show, I've got Jacolby Gilliam. He is a former walk-on Division I student athlete on a mission to help change the culture for athletes and sports media through the power of being real and authentic. Every athlete and brand has a story to share that can inspire another on their journey, and he's going to help them share that with 9 Point Media. So welcome onto the show, Jacolby.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
So before we delve into today's episode, can you talk us and walk us back through the journey, probably if you start back in high school, and obviously what was the idea behind going to become a walk-on?
Yeah, so like most athletes here in the state, I wanted to go D1. That was the big picture. That was the whole idea of my whole journey, my whole purpose. I wanted to be a Division I college athlete. I wanted to, I wanted to be. My main sport was football. So I thought, I'll be on NCAA football, be able to put myself on the game, kind of have that, that my player career. And I was I always had that persona. That's what I wanted to be. And I was kind of the underdog athlete. I didn't really understand the recruiting process. I didn't understand why I didn't. I thought it was my coach's job to get me recruited. So my senior year, I was still kind of left with no offers. I was getting letters here and there, and I was having a pretty good season. Then my senior year, mid-year, I tore my ACL. I got hit kind of awkwardly and landed wrong, and my ACL tore, and it kind of hit me like, okay, what next? I was a senior with no offer. I had smaller schools that wanted to give me money to go play there, like NAIA type stuff. My ego was telling me, no, man, your goal was D1, and so Oklahoma was like my dream school. So I got in on academics, and I was like, all right, let's try to walk on there and let's just see where it happens. Because my mom told me, she was like, you can go to one of these smaller schools and say you get hurt again. And if you get hurt again, we'd be happy going there for 4 years, or we'd be happy going to your dream school. So I was like, we have it at Oklahoma, so I went to OU.
And talk to me about the mindset, and this is something you discussed recently on your show, about what is the fixation of every young American's boy's dream of playing Division I football?
And I really don't know. It's just I think it's the lifestyle, or just the status of being to say, I achieved that level of success. Like we kind of see being a D1 athlete. You like in America, we kind of glamorize that experience. We have these big signing day shows on all the sports media sites. The paper gets there. You have the fans. You have your family. You have everybody behind you. It's like you kind of found out that on letter of intent, saying I'm going D1. So I think it's just kind of having that status, like I made it, kind of feeling, if that makes sense.
But on the other hand, you didn't get the offer that you wanted to, but you still managed to be able to accomplish what probably not a lot of athletes get to do, is go where their first preference of choice is.
Yeah, I got lucky. Honestly, Oklahoma kind of got me in as academically, kind of last minute. So it was like a grace of God type thing that I got into Oklahoma. Because my ACT wasn't that great. I had like a 3.3 GPA, but it was nothing crazy. My ACT wasn't that good. So it was like how I got in. It was kind of like lucky type deal. So I was like, okay, if they're gonna accept me, might as well just kind of roll the dice and just see what this walk-on thing lands me. So I was walking on. My goal was to do football, but I reached out too late. So track and field was like, hey, we'll let you come try out. So I was like, all right, this is my opportunity. Let's do it.
But Out of interest, Jacolby, what was your major in? Was it journalism or business, or have you kind of gone on a tangent now, gone into the media world?
Yeah, man. So going into school, I was a marketing major, so business marketing. I kind of always had the passion for kind of like the media, the kind of like the marketing, kind of helping share stories in a sense. So it kind of always was something that I always want to align. Like kind of looking back in my early days in high school, my goal was always to go be a student athlete, maybe go pro, work for ESPN. So that was kind of like how I kind of aligned myself out of how I wanted the journey to go. Didn't really work out that way, but it's kind of like my own kind of version of it in a sense.
But do you think in some instances, young individuals, especially the sporty ones, maybe set their goals too high, or do you think that's maybe an over exaggeration?
I think I think like if you set your goals too low, you want to achieve everything you want to achieve. You know, like if I would have set my goal to go D3, there's nothing wrong with going D3, but I may have not have tried to work out as hard because it would have been a different journey. Try to get noticed, try to get the faster time, try to get the extra rep in. So I think it's almost like that mindset of kind of saying, if my goal was big, I need to make sure I'm doing the thing to kind of make sure I'm kind of able to achieve that level of goal or that level of purpose I'm trying to achieve. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, exactly. And obviously, you kind of aligned yourself with track and field. Were you a track and field athlete in high school, or not really?
I just kind of thought I was a football guy that ran track. So it was more of like the off season thing to kind of make sure you're kind of staying in shape and kind of like what can you really do. I wasn't good at basketball. I was too aggressive. So I always fouled out. So I was pretty decent at track. I could run a good third leg on the relay. So it was always like my second sport. So and I loved it, just the environment, the way just a community people just come together and just to run a few laps. So it was cool.
And I'd like to get your take on this. Obviously, I've discussed this on a couple of shows in the past about obviously you've got to be one sport dominant now to be able to succeed. Do you agree with that comment, or do you think you could still get to a highish level, even if you were, say, a multiple sports athlete in high school?
I think it depends on the athlete, but I've seen a lot of athletes that have been dual, triple, like doing three or four sports that are doing great things. You look at like a lot of the guys now that are pro, they play multiple sports. Like I know one guy from Oklahoma just got drafted, and he's a quarterback for Oklahoma, but we got drafted to play baseball. And I think it just really just depends on like each sport kind of gives you a little something that the other doesn't. Like track and field kind of gave me more of a sense of how to use acceleration, how to kind of use burst of speed. Football kind of gave me more of that intensity, that aggressiveness that I needed. Basketball kind of taught me how to, be more light on my feet. So I think each sport kind of gives you something that you can really use in the other, just on how you kind of have your mindset and how you kind of use each sport and each lesson in the game.
I like the fact that you come back to the mental side of things, and obviously, if we come back to your ACL injury and being probably a young athlete, what kind of mind frame did that put you in? Because you talked about the fact that you weren't getting any offers. Were there more signs of doubt that it's like, well, will I ever achieve my goals at a higher level?
Yeah, man. So when I told my ACL, I went through this anxiety, depression, really kind of just funk because all my life I was Jacolby the athlete. All my life, that's who everyone knew me as, was the athlete. So once I kind of lost that identity, I didn't know who I was as a person really, because like I didn't understand what I was good at after that. Like what can Jacolby do? If he's not on the football field. Like, who is this guy? And so it kind of put me through kind of mentality, trying to figure out who I was, and it kind of helped me kind of fall in love with marketing more. I kind of had to like rely on my brain more than just the bronze, and it kind of put me that mentality that it made me mentally strong, because the rehab process for ACL injury is brutal. If you've ever gone through it, it just looks like it's like a 6 month to 9 month process. You know, you have to train yourself to know that you got to take one day at a time to try to get your knee back to mobility. You got to get your quads back stronger. You got to work on being able to walk again, how to run. And I think it's just the mental process kind of taught me how to keep pushing myself to take it day by day, but still have the bigger picture in mind.
But also, Jacolby, is there a little bit of self-doubt in the back of your mind? Because once you have that first initial ACL injury, the knee isn't 100% ever again.
I doubt for at least a couple months. And what helped me is I had a personal trainer that I was going to since like I think junior high, Eddie Jackson. And I remember he told me one day, he was like, Jacolby, the only way you're gonna get through this is if you're a praying man. And kind of taught me, you know, like it kind of made me kind of get more that I wasn't alone in the journey type mentality. You know, like my faith kind of helped me really kind of give me that mindset, that mentality to kind of understand that there's nothing you can't do if you have God, you have your faith, somebody like knowing that you're not alone on it.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. But coming back to the fact that you had that ACL and then you went in to do track, did you find that the initial acceleration you had before the injury versus post-injury would it have been significant, or you couldn't, or was not really that much of a difference?
Okay, I get what you're saying now. So in the sense of the ACL recovery is normally 9 months. And when I tore my ACL, I tore it in October, had surgery in November. So in order to walk on in Oklahoma, I had to try to be like kind of full speed sprinting by like before August, because school started in August. So I recovered in 6 months instead of the full 9. And ultimately, I thought I was ready. You know, I was running, I was jumping and everything like that. And then I got to college and I realized, like, oh, snap, they're doing hang clean, they're doing power clean, they're doing box jumps. All this pressure in my knee was not really ready for it. I remember it was days when my knee was just swollen. And I was trying to just fight it through. And honestly, that freshman year, I was walk-on tryout and I was trying out for the team. And we had our first meet, I want to say it was like January 20th. And that was kind of like my big meet, kind of showed that I was able to be a D1 athlete on the team. And we were doing block starts on, I think it was like 3 days before, so maybe it was like January 17th. And we were doing like one of our next to last block starts, and the coach fired the gun. I come out the blocks, I'm like mid stride, and like my hamstring just, and I was like, oh crap! I thought, just walk it off, and like I couldn't really run. It felt like it was like almost torn in a sense. So in my back of my mind, I'm like, can we run this first meet? I went and got the trainer. Then we iced it, we stem, we did all this, kinesis tape, we did all this other stuff. And the day of that meet, I couldn't do it. Like I could have ran, and it would have been utter embarrassment. I probably would have fell off of the blocks and just on the ground. And so I couldn't run. And I told the coach that day, I was like, I can't go. And the meet happened. I couldn't run. The next day we had practice, and he was just like, hey man, maybe try again next year, because I couldn't secure my spot on the team, so I couldn't run. So they was like, there's no need to have you on the team this year. And ultimately that was almost as worse as tearing my ACL, because it was almost the first time in my life that someone told me that I was good enough to be an athlete. And my ego didn't know how to take it, because I always been Jacolby the athlete again, and I was back at square one. like, who am I now? This is something I worked 6 months for to prepare to walk on here, and I felt like I failed. I remember I told mom, and I told her what happened. And I was just crying because I didn't know. Like, I'm back to being Jacolby the student, and then I wasn't ready for that. So yeah.
But in hindsight, Kobe, do you think you maybe accelerated the recovery process too fast?
Oh, definitely. But it pushed me to a new level, though. It pushed me to a level that I didn't know was possible, because I think what helped me too to kind of make sure they kind of do that too fast was I had people behind me that believed in my dream as well. Like, I had a PT that was saying, "All right, Jacolby, if you want to do this, let's make it happen." Because she's a former athlete as well. She's like, "Hey, if you like, it's possible." I had a surgeon who was saying, "All right." He was saying, "All right, if you want to do this, let's do it the right way. Let's make sure you're rehabbing the right way. Make sure you're doing exercises X, Y, Z." So I think having people behind me that believed in my dream just as much as I did really helped me want to keep pushing and keep going faster than I need to go.
But you talk about those, obviously, those knockbacks to your ego now, being the first one in high school and then the one in college, being told you're not good enough to be on the team. What did you have to find within yourself to kind of get over that hurdle? Because being knocked back once is bad enough, let alone twice.
My ego was just, I don't know. It wasn't the ego of fear of failure, but it was the fear of, I guess, of letting myself down, and it was the fear of knowing that I would have to kind of show people that I didn't achieve the goals that I failed to achieve. And I think for me, it was that internal pressure just made me want to keep trying to figure this out. So I remember, like, I emailed the coach and I was like, "Hey man, like, I want to try this again." Because like, I've never like quit at anything in my life, and I feel like if I don't try this again and I know what I'm capable of. If I quit now, I know I can't, like, undo this. So I told him, I was like, emailed him, and he was like, "All right, let's try this again next year." And I think when your ego is kind of a good and a bad thing. Sometimes it can get you on the track, but then it can also get you, stuck in the blocks because you teach what's in your head.
But do you think, and I know this might be a little bit of generalization now, do you think athletes are worse for that kind of mentality?
Personally, I know I struggled with that a lot. That was like my biggest downfall when it came to track and field. I was in my head so much. Like, at practice, I would be great. I would be running, good time compared to, like, the guys that are on scholarship, whatever. I would be hitting the mark, like, and stuff like that. But I got into a meet. I was in my head so much thinking I need to run this time to show my coach that I'm able to really be a student athlete. I'm able to really do this, show my peers. And then, like, I get in the block, I, like, freeze. So I think I was in my head so much in my ego because I wanted it so bad that I lost the fun in it when it came to meet day. At practice, it was fun. At practice, I was just having fun. I was just running free. It was like Forrest Gump. I just ran. And then I got the meet. I was so into, I gotta perform. I gotta run this time. I gotta beat this guy next to me that I lost track of my own lane.
That's a weird one in terms of that, though, from the outside perspective, because, and this is probably more so towards athletes listening, it's more difficult to get yourself to be driven to get the, how do I put this, the excitement factor or the enjoyment out of practice, whereas generally you get a kick out of the competition element. But I see where you're coming from in terms of it's kind of a egotistical mentality in terms of you're trying to beat your peers as opposed to, and I can't remember on the flip side what it's called, but as opposed to just wanting to better yourself.
Yeah, I Well, I know for me, like it's that quote, kind of just kind of stay in your lane type deal. And at practice, it would just be Jacolby. It would just we'll do runs, and like it'll just be Jacolby versus Jacolby in the lane. But then when it's meet day, it was Jacolby versus the guy to my left, the guy to my right, the guy next to him. And in my head, instead of kind of staying on me running in my lane here and here and kind of keeping those blinders, I would know that this guy here runs the 10.5. So I know he has a good block start. The guy next to me, he runs a 10.6, and he has a great acceleration at the finish line. So for me, I was thinking about everybody else but myself. And so when the gun fired, I can remember what Kobe did well. And now I would run slow, and I was like, all right, what's this thing? What am I doing? And it didn't happen every time because I couldn't get outside of my own lane.
Jacoby, do you think also it could be because of the fact that, and I don't quote me on this, but in high school, in terms of the football preparations, do the players actually go into depth and look at the frailties of an opposition?
Do you mean like what like study your opponent type deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, in a sense, like I know, like we did in my school, we did a lot of we'll watch how linemen move, watch how running back, cut, how they move and X, Y, Z. So for me, yeah, we would like you study your opponent in that sense.
Do you think deep down, like subconsciously, your brain was still stuck in that kind of gear then, once you moved to track and field?
No, I think for me, it was still stuck on that freshman year getting cut from the team. I think I was still in that mindset of, if I run bad, I could be cut from the team. And that carried me through my season because I was always scared, like if I run a bad race, they may let me go again. And I don't want that to happen. So I put all this pressure on myself to try to figure out how can I run faster? How can I keep moving? And I think and it kind of made me maybe kind of freeze up in a sense. So it's almost as I couldn't handle the pressure I was putting on myself to
So
achieve.
it's kind of a reverse of having the chip on your shoulder, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody else, but I know for me in track and field, having when in track and field, if you're too tense, you're running slow. It's all about kind of being loose and kind of having that flow and whatnot. And myself, when I was so in my thoughts about having to have the best block start, how to have the best drive phase, how to have the best finish, I was so tense because I was like, I gotta get this, gotta get this, and I didn't get it. And ultimately, I would say I underachieved at what I want to do as the time spent, but kind of ultimately why I kind of started 9 Point in a sense, because I want to help athletes achieve what I wish I would have achieved, and kind of got to give them that resource to kind of help them hear from other athletes and how they achieve their version of greatness in a sense.
Do you think, in other words, it would be you've overwhelmed your senses because obviously if you compound it too much and you overthink things, you can't process the information quick enough?
Yes, and for me, when you especially in track and field, you're just running. You should just be, just boom, 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 just you're up and down, up and down, up and down. And when you're thinking about every little thing, how the guy next to you is coming out of his transition, how they're going to finish, how their arm movement, instead of focusing on you and your arm going, you're going to be run the time use. I think it was a lot of over sensory and kind of just overthinking the process when it could have been just so simple.
Oh yeah, but you put it too modestly there. It's not it's not as simple as just running, though, is it? It's because the difference between say somebody running around in a field as opposed to being technically proficient on a track is miles apart.
Well, I'll put it back to this way because at practice, it's easy. At practice, it's just you're just having fun and you're just flowing and you're just running up and down. That's what I mean by like it was like it's just simple because at practice you're just flowing. Well, for me, that's the way it was. Like I would just be flowing. It was easy. It felt like like it was hard practices, but it felt like it felt like I was moving. It felt like there was no like I remember when I was running, there was no thoughts about what was happening. It would just go. It was almost like muscle memory. But then in the meet, it became, what are you doing? How do you do this? How do you run? That's what I mean by it just be simple when it comes to the.
Do you think also there's that heightened, and you talked about it from the coaching perspective of being, you could be dropped at any minute, but do you think because the NCAA is put on a pedestal in the US, because of that media spotlight, do you think that had an impact to some degree as well?
Not for me. I was a walk on that no one knew. So there was no eyes on me to do anything above the ordinary. So really it came down to just me out doing what Jacolby needed to do. And I think for a lot of athletes, other sports, it probably is hard for them because the eyes are all on you to achieve. And then when you don't achieve, other media sites want to bash you on not knowing why you didn't achieve. No, they want to say you aren't focused. They want to say you're doing X, Y, Z, and maybe like you just had like a bad test the day before, and you're kind of bummed about it. So I think it's kind of important that sports media going forward tries to understand the athlete and why they do what they do before just judging them without knowing their story.
That's a good argument, but then their job is to create news, isn't it? You probably don't delve deeply into the mindset of a person. You can't, because you don't know what's going inside between those two ears. But I think you have a valid point there that they should be more understanding, especially of a student athlete, because at foremost, the words they speak for themselves. They're a student first, so they've got to succeed in the classroom. But on the other hand, and as you can attest to, it's a business.
Yeah, that's totally true. But the way I look at it is, if say someone's married, right, and their wife is having a bad day, they're gonna ask, why are you having a bad day? They're gonna want to understand why she's feeling that way instead of just judging her for being moody and mad. And I think it's like when I'm doing 9 Point is, I want to make it so where we're telling stories that are actual stories for athletes. We're not judging them on their feeling, because at the end of the day, we're all human. Athletes are kind of made out to be invincible, but at the end of the day, they're somebody's mom. I mean, there's somebody's dad, there's somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's son, somebody's daughter. And we all go through the emotions, ups and downs, and we shouldn't judge them without knowing what they're going through, because everyone's going through something, right? And we kind of try to understand, have more humanity in the process, instead of just saying, "Oh, they're trash as an athlete. They're not focused. They're bust." Like, come on. But yeah.
Well, that's always a harsh one, a bust, because you're comparing it to somebody else. So it's like, well, the other argument you could say for sakes is, well, a big one all the time in the news, is LeBron versus Jordan. So it's like, well, and I had this argument with my well, not an argument per se, discussion with my father yesterday about it. It's like, well, they talk about the greatest of all time. Well, you could probably have an argument for every star throughout the NBA history as to why that person was the best. So it's like, well, he's not, you could argue he's not the greatest in terms of NBA finals, but to make 8 in a row is still an achievement.
So true. Because I call it, like a 9 point, I say like achieve your version of greatness. Because really, how do you define greatness? It's like, it's kind of a personal opinion. For some people, greatness may be winning one championship. For me, greatness was being a D1 athlete. That was like my version of greatness because that's the level I wanted to achieve. So it's like, how do you define greatness for someone else? Like Jordan is great, but so is Will Chamberlain. LeBron is great, but so was Shaq, so was Kobe. So we're they all have the version of greatness and what they were able to achieve. So like, how do you define one version of greatness?
You can't really, because like you said, that's if you could debate, argue, give your own opinion on why that person is. Okay, you need to accept the other person's side of the coin. So, but like you say, they are good at their time for what they did. They've all, how would I put this? Added something to the sport and influenced a generation. And obviously, each person have got their time where they've preferred the sport and things like that. But like you say, you can't really determine what is greatness.
Exactly. It's like subjective almost.
And this is a question I should have asked you earlier in the show. For the listeners, obviously the ones in the US would know of Oklahoma being, well, a powerhouse in football, well known in basketball, but in the likes of track and field, where would it rank amongst?
They're a growing program right now. Like they're doing some great things. Like my sophomore year, they got a new head coach, and he came in with a different mentality. Like we want to win, we want to be one of the best type mentality. He kind of feel that with his coaching staff and his athletes. They're really starting to make waves in the national ranks. Like the women's team is coming really strong. They had a few people go to nationals. I'm going the U.S. trials that are like going on now. So it's really, I would say they're really a growing program because they kind of instill a new culture in the program. So it's really exciting to see.
But why do you think that there had to be a change in culture? Because from the outside perspective, and this is probably a generalization to the whole country now, the world at large probably sees the US as, at times, and this is probably a little bit generalization of the whole country now, a bit brash, very overconfident. But why do you think there had to be a culture change at your university, though?
It was, it's in the sense of each person has their own personality and their own way of how they instill confidence or whatever in their team. And I don't know if I wasn't there that long, but I would say like Coach V, he brought a mentality of just like we're a team, and I was like with him, it was like we're all going to be one unit. Like we have meetings every Wednesday that there was like attendance for. So it kind of made us to where people were like, you knew the person that was on the distance team, the sprint team, the throws team, the multi team. So we kind of came like a unit. I think that's really important to track and field. People think that it's so individualized, but you need that guy that's a jumper to score well at conference for you to win the championship. You need that thrower to throw and get at least 3 points in the discus. I think kind of made us to where we were kind of like, we knew we wanted to see each other succeed because we knew if that person succeeded next to us, we're going to achieve our big goal. So I think like he kind of brought that mentality like, hey, we're one team. We're not just individuals doing our own events.
Do you think, Jacolby, now that mindset that people have, or the perception of track and field is very individualistic, is because they focus too much per se on, say, the World Championships, the Olympics, and the other one has now eluded me. But looking at those perspectives where it is all about, say the relays, is about the individual performance.
Yeah, I believe like when you're pro, it becomes more of an individualized thing, unless you're like, at a training camp, whatever. When you have like, teammates that you're kind of working out with type deal, you kind of want them to do well because it kind of helps you push you to do better. But like college, it's the team. You're in goal to win conference, you're in goal to win NCAAs. So you kind of want that person next to you, whether they're in your event or not, to do well.
And talking on this next point, obviously you raised these type questions, or how would you put it? Opinions, polls of people as to why they believe a certain conference, and you probably know what I'm talking about now, in terms of why do they succeed both, and I think you looked at it both academically and in the sporting context, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I did a little poll over like on the 9 Point Instagram, like what's the better what's better overall conference, and me being a Big 12 guy, I was a little biased, but it's funny kind of seeing all the other athletes saying they're saying ACC, SEC, Big 10, Pac 10, all like that. And it was cool to kind of see people's perspective. Women were like, academics wise is important to them, but I think we all have our own perception of, it's almost back to like the merging the greatness stuff. It's like,
but then the argument of say the ACC and say the SEC, do you think there's a little bit of a media bias towards those more so say from a sporting context now?
Honestly, I don't know. Like I would say they're winning more, so it kind of helps. When when you have teams that are really producing championships, it's kind of easier to say, they're a better conference. So it's easy to get more, because like a lot of things with like Sandra and media, they're based on the ad, they're based on the revenue they're bringing in. So you want to go show the winners, you want to show the Alabamas of the world, because you want to make your money. And like, it's something like I kind of thought when I started 9 Point is like, that's great, but I want to showcase the stories of the athletes that are in the smaller conferences, because who says their story can inspire somebody else that's going to be in that same conference? Like why than just, because we always hear the big name story. What about the smaller stories?
Well, I think when it's on like mainstream news, you're only going to hear like that kind of story if it's, say, and we use a bit like a biblical reference now, say David versus Goliath. That's the only time you're going to see it in mainstream.
Yeah, the underdog story, and that's great. We all love an underdog, but what about James who just broke his leg? And it's coming back, to be to run to play his senior year of basketball. He could easily quit. He could easily, call it a quit, and hang it up. But he's like, I don't want to be my team that last run. And that could inspire that could inspire me when I was a high school kid to kind of hear that story and like, all right, this dude bounce back. How can I do it? So I think it's like, I believe this is something I believe really, really important here, that each person has a story that they can share that can inspire somebody else. But I think a lot of times we're scared to share it because we don't think it's important. We don't think our story is going to help somebody else, but really, it really can. No matter how big or small it may seem, your story can impact somebody else. So say for you, we're talking on the podcast, how you went from sport to sport, kind of found your purpose in the rowing after swimming, how you kind of found your joy and how to found something that you're really good at, and you're like, all right, I want to go for this. And you, like you were saying, it was your first time doing it, and you're like, I got this. Your story can inspire someone that's going through the same process when it comes to being, a Paralympic athlete and whatnot. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
I'm probably you could say it's a bit humble, but I kind of at the time thought nothing of it because it's a transition. okay, I didn't expect to be, and I probably mentioned on your show, to be that good off the bat. Okay, I improved from year one to when I finished, but to be able to pick it up so quickly, I never thought in a million years that would have happened. But there's got to be some, and I think probably sports people themselves, we're quite multi-talented. We're able to do similar to, well, I wouldn't say swimming and rowing is very similar, other than the kind of the aerobic component of it, but you're able to shift the mindset, say, perspective onto a different, well, if this is going to get me to point B, so be it. Let me use this as a vehicle.
And that point there, like at first you thought it wasn't important, and it's like, and like your story is like it's a good story because it shows how you just went for it, and I think that's something that people can inspire by, because they just say you didn't let the not knowing how to do it stop you from going after it, so that's something other people don't really know from just anything in sports. Just like your story matters. Doesn't matter if you're, Division I, D2, D3, Olympian, semi-pro, pro. It's just your story can inspire somebody, and one person can get inspired by you did something right.
And then, well, this is probably not a question now, but you kind of did another poll. Oh gosh, what was it? Not long before the World Cup started. From a mental perspective now. Okay, most of the Americans probably tuned off because the national team is not in it. But from your perspective now, has there been it's not been a World Cup that you can predict. There's been results that you're thinking, okay, this is come out of left field now. It's like, what? I didn't expect that at all. What do you think? And it's quite a difficult question to answer. The perception of the teams that are supposedly the underdogs are doing to be able to be on par, because the skill level, and this is an argument they had on our national television, I think a couple of days ago, in terms of, and I didn't agree with it because it was like, because they have too much time off between preparation and the start of the World Cup, but that's not going to differentiate between a supposedly world-class player and, well, that's probably too harsh a word, but mediocre, because they've all had the time off. So to say that the better player needs freshness, what other words did they use? But they need time to get their skill set up, I think was total rubbish, because it was going to be the same for the other players that are supposedly not as talented, because it's like, well, they've had the time off. They're not as on the ball, so to speak. So I thought the argument was quite null and void.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. So on the poll, it was like it was the team, like Spain, England, Portugal, Germany, Berlin, Mexico. And there was one kid, he was like, Mexico, what a joke on there. And I was like, I commented, I was like, all underdog needs is an opportunity. That's all we need. Opportunity. Like if you put Mexico and Germany on the field, they have the same amount of time, half possession, and if you get the opportunity to make most of it, you're going to win the game. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to come to anything you do. Like, opportunity would come down to and who makes the most of it. But only one opportunity. So I think it's what it comes down to. Whether you're, like, I was not like I wasn't that good. Like, I wasn't like a runner, but I beat a few guys that were on scholarships, and it wasn't because I was that much better. I had that opportunity, and I made the most of it. Just that race. I mean, another race, I would have lost to them. But I think that's what it comes down to, opportunities, and kind of just we're all given the same opportunities, just got to make most of them.
But then, Jacolby, some people might argue now, and this is the age-old saying now, that you wanted it more than them.
Yeah. That's definitely true. Opportunity, like you say like you're the higher team, you're kind of thinking it's gonna be a breeze. The other guy has an opportunity to kind of show you that they are able to be on that stage. They wanted more, made most of the opportunity. So I think that's definitely true.
But obviously, going forward now, um, you're trying to grow your brand and whatnot, and obviously the podcast is probably going from strength to strength because you're getting more and more, very more. That even though like the most recent one you put out touched a chord with me in terms of you kind of reflect on as an athlete, you've got this you could say goal, and you put it on a pedestal and you don't quite make it, you kind of reevaluate yourself and say, well, like you've attested to, it's that adversity and the knockbacks, and you you need to reevaluate yourself and whatnot. But what would be kind of your 2 cents to give to athletes that are having those kind of troubles? I probably to some degree did have an inkling of that self doubt. Whereas I perceive myself as just this one identity. But what would you say for them to kind of do, or to kind of reinvent the wheel, so to speak, to not have the problems that you had arise?
Honestly, I think what helped me the most was kind of developing a sense of self, kind of understanding who I was and worth it out. So once kind of understand who you are, you kind of like kind of have this kind of perception of yourself that no one can really kind of dig into really. So like for me, I kind of realized that I'm Jacolby Gilliam. I love marketing. I love storytelling, but I also love being an athlete. So the day that I had a bad practice, the day that I had a bad meet, I was able to kind of flip that switch and understand that I still have a value in marketing. I still have the value in this. So I think for any athlete kind of going through that, that anxiety, that feeling, just kind of think about, why you do what you do, why you love your sport, why do you pursue it. And I think we can we kind of go back to like that sense of purpose, that value that sport gives you. It kind of makes it click to, it was just one game, it was just one meet. Because there's so many times that I was just so depressed, and I was just so mad at myself. I was like, man, you should have ran faster. But I knew, but I realized though, add a new meet the next week, can do better. And I think if we can just get the mindset to know that opportunities are going to be there for you, you just got to make the most of them when they come. Just be ready for them.
And then my final question for you, Jacoby, I think you've probably touched upon that a little bit, but we'll try and see if we can ink out a little bit more. But if you had to summarize what we've been speaking about today into one, if you can, oh God, I lost my train of thought. I'll delete that bit now. If you had to summarize what we've been speaking about today into one sentence for people to take away, what would that be?
Oh, that's tough right there. That's a tough one right there, man. All right, so let's see. I would say takeaway for this episode is just to understand yourself as an athlete and as a person outside your sport. Because when you understand yourself, it can help you achieve your version of greatness despite the outside noise and the outside pressure to be what the outside world wants you to be.
I think that's a great quote to live by. So once again, Jacolby, thanks again for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
Hey, Jane, appreciate you having me on, man.
And before I forget, I would really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave a short written review, as it helps to get the podcast more notoriety, and it would be more visible in future to others, and thus helping more people, which my guests and I are all about. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Mindset Game Podcast.